Hello student, welcome to Master Maths classes. Today we shall be learning about quadrilaterals. You all know quadrilaterals are four-sided figures and they are one of the most important components of our geometrical studies. Quadrilateral, the word itself comes from the Latin word quadri plus lateral, that means four-sided. So any figure that is four-sided figure is known as quadrilateral. Now let me draw one simple quadrilateral for you. This is a quadrilateral because it has got four sides. Naturally there are four angles and four corners or four vertices, A, B, C and D. Geometrically, just as in triangle case, we denote a triangle using a symbol of a small triangle and the names of its three vertices like triangle ABC. Similarly, for quadrilateral, we use a small square as a symbol and then we use the names of all the four corners A, B, C, D in this case to denote a quadrilateral. Now it has four corners. Corner A and corner B are next to each other, so we can call them adjacent. Corner B and corner C are next to each other because one comes after the other, therefore we call them adjacent. C and D are also adjacent and D and A are also adjacent. But if we take A and C and skip B, then A and C become opposite vertices. Similarly, if we take D and B and we skip A, then D and B are opposite vertices or opposite corners. Now let us join these opposite corners by a straight line. Then I get a line AC. This line AC is called a diagonal. Alright, and similarly I can join from B to D and construct a straight line joining the two opposite vertices BD. Then I get line BD and that is also a diagonal. So in case of a quadrilateral, we always have two lines drawn inside from corner to corner, that is opposite corners, okay, and they are representing what we call diagonals. The most important property of the diagonals is that in this case they meet each other or they intersect each other at a point in between. So keeping these initial knowledge about quadrilateral, we shall be now trying to understand and classify different types of quadrilateral. So when we are talking about quadrilaterals, we can divide quadrilaterals broadly into two categories. The first kind of quadrilaterals are called convex quadrilateral and the second kind are called concave quadrilateral. Now what is a convex quadrilateral and what are the concave quadrilaterals? Let me explain you with the help of a simple figure. Now here I am constructing a quadrilateral. It's a four-sided figure, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3 and 4 sides, and we have opposite corners like A and C and B and D. They are opposite corners. Now if I join them using a straight line, then you can see that these two diagonals, they meet each other at a point within the quadrilateral. Now this is also a kind of quadrilateral. As you can see, it has four sides, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and four corners. For example, A, B, this is C and D. And just like we are joining AC as the opposite corners, I can join here AC, and just like we join BD as the opposite corner, I can join BD over here as opposite corners of the quadrilateral. So when this joining is done, you can understand that the two diagonals that we have drawn here, AC and BD, they are not cutting each other or they are not intersecting each other. There's not a single point common in between them. They stay far apart. So whenever that is the case, the kind of quadrilateral that you are dealing with is known as concave quadrilateral. And whenever the diagonals meet each other within the convex quadrilateral, it is called convex quadrilateral. So we can distinguish a convex quadrilateral from a concave quadrilateral on the basis of how the diagonals behave. If the two diagonals that we draw meet each other, then it is a convex quadrilateral, and if the two diagonals do not meet each other at all and stay away from each other, then that kind of quadrilateral is a concave quadrilateral. Now for a while we are not going to study much about concave quadrilateral. It's just an introduction, so I gave you that there are two kinds of quadrilaterals. The most important quadrilateral in your study right now is convex. So we are going to classify different kinds of convex quadrilateral and study in detail. So let's go to quadrilateral. Again, we can divide them into two categories, that is convex and concave. Now we are going to discuss only about the convex quadrilaterals. Convex quadrilaterals are of three kinds. So we can classify them into three categories as it is displayed on the screen. You can see here that the first kind is known as a parallelogram. The second kind is called KITE, and the third kind is known as a trapezium. So once again, quadrilaterals are of two kinds, that is convex and concave. Concave we are not going to study, so leave it aside. We are now studying detailed study about convex quadrilateral, and then we find that convex quadrilateral is again subdivided into three categories. The first category is called parallelogram, the second kite, the third trapezium. Now each of these three categories are also divided into subcategories. First one, parallelogram. It is broadly divided into two categories. Alright, the first one is known as a rectangle, the second one is known as a rhombus. So rhombus is a parallelogram, a rectangle is a parallelogram. Alright, now rectangle and rhombus both are not subdivided into two categories further, but their collective characteristic properties are combined together to get one more family member of parallelogram family, and that is a square. A square has partial characteristics of a rectangle and partial characteristic of rhombus. And then we combine both together, we get a third kind of parallelogram, and that is a square. So in short, a parallelogram has got three different kinds of parallelograms: a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square. Kite is one of its kind. We just have a simple regular kite. Okay, so that's that. There's no much to be learnt about that. Whereas a trapezium is divided into two subcategories, the first and the second. The first one is known as isosceles trapezium. The second category is known as right trapezium. I hope you understand so far. I would want you to memorize the entire, family chart of this convex quadrilateral. Now, if you want, we can further go ahead and classify from the very beginning. Let us understand that we started our studies about quadrilaterals. The quadrilaterals are broadly divided into two categories: the convex quadrilateral and the concave quadrilateral. Okay, the convex quadrilateral is further divided into three categories: a parallelogram, a kite, and a trapezium. Okay, I hope you understand, and we don't study much about concave, so we terminate its study at this point. There's no further family chart for concave quadrilaterals. Parallelogram can be further divided into two broad categories, that is a rectangle and a rhombus, and a third figure can be obtained by collective or combined characteristics of rectangle and rhombus, and that is called a square. A kite is of one of its kind. There are no different types of kites. Whereas trapezium, they are of two different categories, and the first one is called isosceles trapezium, and the second one is called right trapezium. Now, if you want to be very clear about all different characteristics of quadrilaterals and the properties, you will have to first remember all these, classification or family chart about this quadrilateral. I hope you understand this.